Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. This video is just going to be a quick little baking video. I'm showing you how I made the treats that I served at my son's birthday party, which was a couple of videos prior to this one. We're going to start off by making the batter for the cake pops and the cupcakes, and I'm just using the Duncan Hines mixes, and each mix calls for 3 eggs, a cup of water, a 1/3 cup of vegetable oil, and the packet of dry mix. So we're just going to throw all that in and start mixing it together. I ended up using 1 box of mix for the cake pop batter and then 1 other box for the cupcake. So I ended up only using 2 boxes of Duncan Hines for both projects. For the cake pop part of this, you're going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. And I'll show it a little bit later when we put the cake in there. But to make the cake pops, you just need to bake like you're baking a regular cake. I went ahead and sprayed a pan down and plopped the mix down in there, and we put it in the oven and we cook it for 30 minutes just like you would a normal cake. I'm having a hard time not doing anything other than thinking about you. So thinking, are you thinking about me? 'Cause I've been thinking about you. Next is the cupcakes. I didn't show me mixing up the batter for the cupcakes because you had just seen me mix up the batter for the cake pops. But I'm just putting the cupcake sleeves in the pan and then we'll pour up the batter. Hope it's not this time, 'cause I might go too fast. Suddenly I feel so rich. By the time we had the batter in the cupcake sleeves, it was time to pull the cake out that we made for the cake pops. So we're going to pull those out and then put the cupcakes in, and we're going to cook the cupcakes at the same temperature for 18 minutes. Now that all the cake is baked and out of the oven, we're going to start working on the dry mix for our Reese's Cup macaroons. This calls for a cup of powdered sugar, a cup of almond flour, and like 2 or 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder, unsweetened cocoa powder. You just put it in this food processor and you blend it up, and then you'll take it out and sift it, and you repeat this 3 times. You'll see a little bit later in the video when we start our meringue for the macaroons. I used 3 egg whites. I should have used 4 egg whites because I had gotten the batter a little bit too thick, and you'll see a little bit later that when the macaroons came out of the oven, they weren't perfectly shaped. They were a little bit wrinkled. So just keep that in mind. If you're going to use the amount of dry mix that I used, the same measurements, you need 4 egg whites instead of 3. The reason that we're taking so much time to process and sift the dry mix is because almond flour is naturally kind of grainy, so you want it to be as smooth as you possibly can. Otherwise, the macaroons don't turn out as pretty. Now that the dry mix is prepared, we're gonna work on the wet mix. Now you need, like I said before, you need 4. I only used 3, but you need egg whites. You'll separate them out, but they need to be at room temperature. It does not work if your eggs are cold. So you need to make sure you set them out a good little bit beforehand so that they can come to room temperature before you actually start mixing. Once we've separated the yolks from the whites, we'll put them in the mixer and we'll beat them until they become frothy. Like you won't be able to see through the liquid. It will be very bubbly. Alright, when it gets to be super frothy and bubbly, you'll start adding a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar to it. You'll just want it to gently cascade in at a slow pace so that it mixes evenly and it doesn't mess the meringue up. Meringue is very ticky, so you have to be slow and you have to be precise. But once you add the sugar, you'll start checking it. It'll turn really white and smooth, but you don't finish it until it has really stiff peaks. And you'll see that I check it a few times this past time. See how it's hanging down? It's not quite ready. You'll see what I'm talking about with the texture when it's complete. Here we are. It's finished. It's perfect. It's holding together on its own. You can see the stiff peaks. It's ready to go. So once your meringue is complete, you'll start macaronaging the dry ingredients with your meringue. You don't put the full dry mix in at first. I usually do about half and half. So I'll put half of the dry ingredients and then I'll just start beating it. And you want to beat it really rough. You don't have to be gentle. The point of macaronage is trying to get all of those air bubbles out so that it gets to be a smooth texture. And when it's ready, I'll show you what it's supposed to look like. When your batter is ready, you'll be able to make a figure 8 without it breaking. They kind of describe it as like flowing lava. Like you can see I was able to make a figure 8 without it breaking. Normally, that would be the consistency that you need it to be. Now, like I said before, I ended up using too much dry ingredients in ratio with my wet ingredients. So my batter was really too thick. I should have either macaronaged it a little bit more. It wasn't quite there, but really I think the issue was I just didn't have enough egg whites. But it's a little bit too thick. You need it to be just a little bit thinner. Like you see how those peaks are forming while I'm putting them out on the pan? They should go down a little bit faster than they are. Now that we have the macarons piped out onto the pans, we're going to beat it out. The point of this is to get all of the air bubbles out and to have a smoother texture. I always go back behind after I beat the pan with a toothpick to pop any other air bubbles that I see so that the texture is as perfect as it can possibly be. After you get all the air bubbles out, you're going to let this sit out on the counter for at least an hour. It will develop a thin film over it. Then you'll put it in the oven on 300 and bake it for 12 to 15 minutes. While we're waiting on that film to develop over our macaron shells, we're going to start making our buttercream icing that we'll be using in our cake pops and also for our cupcakes. So you want to start out with 4 sticks of mostly melted, not all the way melted butter. Then I always eyeball it, but I would probably do like a tablespoon and a half of imitation clear vanilla. Make sure you're using clear vanilla or it will affect the color of your icing. And then I just start putting powdered sugar in it and mix it until it gets to the texture that I need it to be at. I like mine to be really creamy, but it can't be runny either. So if you're using 4 sticks of butter, it's going to take a good little bit of powdered sugar. I don't remember exactly how much I used, but it was probably about a 16-ounce bag and a half at least. But yeah, we're gonna make this up. We're gonna mix some of this in with our cake that we baked for the cake pops and form the balls here in just a little bit. So our icing is ready. We're gonna get the cake that is fully cooled off by now that we're using for the cake pops, and we're going to crumble it up as best we can into a bowl. Then once we have it all crumbled, we're gonna put buttercream icing in it. I did not put enough icing in here because you'll see later on that my cake pops were falling apart and they did not turn out very well, and the reason behind that is because I didn't use enough icing and they were just a little bit too crumbly. I don't really know how to explain the texture that it needs to be. It's really a lot of trial and error. You're just gonna have to play with it and figure it out. Like I said, I should have used probably 1.5 cups to 2 cups, whereas I only used about 1 cup of buttercream icing. But you roll up the balls and then you put them in the fridge for about an hour and let them get really cool before you can do anything else with them.
You know that I'ma keep it cool. With you I feel like breaking rules. On the edge, looking out with no parachute. You know I'm dreaming about us two, playing around without a clue. On the edge, leaning out. With us it's all or nothing. Ooh, but guess I need more of you. With us it's all or nothing, but guess I need more of you. You say it during night, but in the morning you're asleep. With us it's all or nothing. Ooh, but guess I need more of you.
Didn't show me mixing up the colors on camera, but we're about to start working on the cupcake cake for Weston's birthday party. I needed yellow, white, black, and green. It's supposed to be a John Deere tractor, and I didn't do a very good job. First of all, I was just not at my peak energy level, and I was lazy, so I just didn't do the greatest of jobs, and I was really upset with myself because of that. But when you're putting the cupcakes down, you need to use royal icing, not buttercream icing, because buttercream icing does not work very well, and it also like turns to liquid eventually. So you'll have I have like black and green puddles underneath this, like not the day of the party, but after. Like after it had sat for a couple of days, it started getting puddles underneath it. But also, I just didn't do a very good job. I mean, you'll see it just looks tacky, and I was really disappointed because I make cake for people for money all the time, and I do so much of a better job. So I don't know what was going on. Like I said, I was really tired and a little bit lazy, I guess because I wasn't getting paid for it. I don't know. But I did like a halfway job, and I'm really disappointed about that. But I mean, like I said, I was tired. But I mean, Weston's only a year old, so he didn't really notice. And it tasted good, and really that's all that matters. But yeah, this was my tacky version of a John Deere tractor cupcake cake.
Don't you stay. Why don't we talk about...
Seriously though, if I had just gotten the right tip and switched it on my piping bags, it would have looked so much better. Weston on here looked so tacky, so disappointing. This is the filling for the macarons. It is peanut butter, powdered sugar, vanilla, and it has a little bit of milk in it to thin it out. And we're just going to use it, and we're going to fill the macarons. And these taste better than actual Reese's cups, in case you didn't know. Highly recommend these. Now we're going to get started with the minute cookies. You start with a stick of butter, and you're going to melt it down, and then you're going to add 2 cups of granulated sugar and a cup of milk, and then a 1/4 cup of cocoa powder, and you'll mix it up really well. And this will all melt and mesh together as it heats up. But first it'll all melt together, and then you need to get it to come to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, you boil it for a minute exactly, and then you will add your other ingredients, but you'll see. Also, these cookies are gluten-free, so if you are gluten intolerant, this is a really good option for you. say boiling, this is what I mean by boiling. When it starts looking like this, you set the timer for a minute and you stir it constantly the whole time that minute is going, and then you take it off the heat. Then you'll add 4 cups, four or 6, I think it's 6 cups of instant oats and a cup of peanut butter. And you'll mix it up really good, and then you'll spoon it out onto parchment paper and let it dry. These are fantastic. These are like childhood memory, nostalgic cookies. Absolutely love these. Now we're going to start on the Rice Krispie treats. You melt half a stick of butter and then a bag of marshmallows on the stove, and it will turn to basically goo. And then you'll put 6 cups of Rice Krispie treats in here, mix it all up and spread it out in a well-greased pan. And then once it cools down, you basically just cut it up and you have Rice Krispie treats. And they are so good. They're so much better than the store-bought ones. So make sure the spatula that you're spreading the Rice Krispie treats out with is also really well greased, or it will stick really bad. Moving on to the cake pops that have been in the refrigerator for an hour. This, like I said, did not work out very well because I didn't put enough icing in them, but I'm going to tell you the process for them to work out well anyway. First, you're going to get the sticks, you're going to dip it in the chocolate or candy melt, stick it in the cake pop, and then spread out the excess icing. And then you want to stick them in like a styrofoam thing or a cake pop holder to hold it up. But you'll do this, and then you'll put it back in the fridge for a little bit before you actually dip the whole cake pop. When you actually start dipping the whole cake pop into the candy melt, the colder that they are, the better. So if you have to stick the pops back in the refrigerator and remelt the candy pop afterward, do that because it is worth them not falling apart. Alright, we're also coming to the end of the video, so I'm going to do this part really quick. I really screwed up, so I didn't show all of it, but when you're dipping your cake pops, after you dip it, spin it around and tap all of the excess off so it's not dripping down the cake pop when you put it back in the stand. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, comment below, introduce yourself, let me know what you thought. I respond to every comment. Love chatting with you guys. Subscribe to my channel. It's free. Really appreciate it when you guys do that, and follow me on Instagram. My handle is Momming with Charity. Love you guys. Bye.